Once upon a time, there was a boy who had a dream. He dreamed that one day he'd be an architect and build a town so beautiful that it would compete with nature as an equal. A town where each house was a work of art and colour. A town by the sea where people could relax, be happy and enjoy their surroundings without the intrusion of modern regimented terraces. The boy grew up to become Sir Clough Williams-Ellis, and the dream became Portmeirion. As you leave the main road and drive up the country lane that leads to the village, you'd be wise to abandon reality, because already you're in the hands of Sir Clough. Through the hedges you'll catch sight of bright, strange buildings. This is deliberate. His plan was to give a taste without revealing the whole menu, and it works. Even the visitor's car park is different. It's designed to cause minimum disturbance to the trees and shrubs. You park amongst the trees so that nature and engineering can blend together, neither intruding on the other. A short walk, buy your ticket, go through the gatehouse, and you enter another world. Sir Clough was in his 40s before he could afford to start his dream, and he searched for 5 more years to find the perfect occasion. At one time he seriously considered an island off the coast of New Zealand, but good sense prevailed, and when he did find the ideal, it was the peninsula of Publicity, just 4 miles from his family home near Penrhyn-Deudraeth in North Wales. On the peninsula had lived a reclusive old lady who discouraged people but loved all other living things. Previous residents had planted a wide selection of ornamental trees and bushes in the grounds of the house, which the old lady refused to have pruned, nor any weeds removed, so that on her death the house took on the look of Sleeping Beauty's castle. Sir Clough was delighted. To the front of the house was a key. Formerly a slate key, it now provided a safe, if shallow mooring and a perfect esplanade. He had long admired the Italian town of Portofino, and already he had his port. Amongst the undergrowth he recognized many exotic species, and he resolved that when he started to build, nothing would be removed unless essential. For the dream to become a reality, it had to be self-supporting. And so, with the site acquired, the race was on. Sir Clough became architect, planner, draftsman, builder, and labourer. He appointed his own team of builders and set to work. After 12 months, at Easter 1926, he had converted the house to an hotel and started to build the village. And so he invited his first guests. The weather was perfect, the weekend a success, and the word began to spread. He started by converting the outbuildings. The old gardener's bothy became the mermaid. He converted the stable block and built 2 new cottages, the Angel and the Neptune. One by one, the new buildings appeared, all dressed in their Mediterranean livery, amongst the slate greyness of the outside world. No building was erected on spec. Each is different, and each has a reason. The campanile is a tribute to Griffith ap Cunnan, whose nearby ruined castle provided the stone for the tower's construction. Telford's tower commemorates the Victorian engineer, and the great dome commemorates one wonderful summer. As the village grew, so its fame spread. Soon it was discovered by the creative greats who found it a perfect hideaway. Writers such as Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell, and A.P. Herbert became regulars. Noel Coward stayed here in the Watchtower and wrote his classic comedy Blithe Spirit in just 1 week. With this sort of guest list, the hotel soon began to attract another sort of visitor, the day tripper. Some hoteliers might see them as intruders, but to Sir Clough they represented another useful source of revenue for his building fund. He made the visitors' car park and put a ticket booth into the guard tower, and then, with careful and creative shepherding, he catered for them without serious intrusion on the guests' privacy. And so it is today. Sir Clough controlled the number of visitors by a very simple ploy. The greater the numbers, the higher the toll. So when the Prince of Wales stayed in the 1930s, he put the entrance fee up to an astronomic 10 shillings, and thus guaranteed a quiet time for HRH. The gardens were also fast becoming a feature, with the old walkways and waterfall being revealed in amongst the undergrowth. And soon the Gwyllt Wild Garden was created by Caton Haig, and his finished work is what you still see here today. One of Sir Clough's first tasks after buying the Aberdare Peninsula was to change its name. Aberdare is the Welsh name meaning icy mouth, rather a chilly title for a dream setting. He settled on the name Portmeirion. Port, because it is one, small though it may be, and Meirion because it lay within the county of Meirionnydd. It was christened in 1928, but typical to the British attitude for change, the first maps to feature it under its new name were those issued by the Luftwaffe to aid their bombing raids in World War II. However, with the project at last providing an income, it was time to expand. Most of the material in the complex comes from elsewhere. This neo-Jacobean town hall is composed of bits of the former Flintshire mansion, Emerald Hall, reassembled to Sir Clough's design to support a superb barrel-vaulted sculptured ceiling that cost him £13 at auction. Having bought the ceiling, he had to part with considerably more to acquire the supports. This, the Norman Shore facade, was once the upper part of a giant fireplace at Dorpool in Cheshire. It was his habit to buy anything that pleased his eye and then to store it until he found a use. These circular slate stepping stones he bought from a local company that made outside privies. These were the surplus slate from the holes. He collected outside ornaments from all sources, rich in the knowledge that one day they'd come in handy. Examples of his sense of humor and cunning are everywhere, but you have to look hard to see them. This sundial was erected as a monument to the inventor of daylight saving, but it's been set the wrong way around and is useless except as a monument. And the windows of this tower are of decreasing sizes to give the false impression of height. He used the false perspective trick with a number of buildings, but none stand out as obvious. As time passed, the village, like Topsy, just growed, with the guests becoming more and more delighted. But in 1939, all building had to stop. With the coming of war, most of the workers were enlisted into the forces, and building work restricted to essential repairs only. So the hotel was just left to take over. It soon became a refuge from war-torn cities for artists, politicians, and people who just came to recharge their bodies. Sir Clough felt a little guilty about his privileged guest list, and he encouraged members of HM forces to come and rest and recuperate. Dambuster Guy Gibson became a regular visitor and actually spent his last leave here before he was killed so tragically on a Pathfinder mission over Europe. Exiled royalty came to stay. In 1942, King Zog of Albania brought his family and court for a little rest, his minders putting the fear of God into the other guests. Hostilities may have put a stop to building, but there were other things to be done. The gardens, lawns, paths, and the West could be attended and improved. And there were the bits and bobs. In happier days, Sir Clough attended so many demolition sales that Portmeirion became known as the home for fallen houses. His bargains were hidden in the woodlands of the estate. And although most would have to wait for reconstruction after the war, there was nothing to stop small objects being added to give buildings and facades cosmetic help. Old features were also revealed. The previous resident had a large collection of assorted dogs, which used to use the mirror room in the house as a communal kennel. As each pet died, it was given a proper funeral, complete with its own headstone. And the dog cemetery is now a much visited part of the village. But time took its toll on the little dream, and it was 1955 before work could start again. The lifting of building restrictions meant all hands to the proverbial pumps. With his old team reassembled, it was time to put right the decay of 15 years. Houses were repainted, roofs repaired, windows had to be replaced, and there were the new facades and buildings to be put into place. Portmeirion has always been a summer place, winter being the time when serious building is done, and the winters after de-restriction were very busy indeed. They were perhaps crowned by the completion of the Great Dome and the erection of this colonnade, rescued from a bomb-damaged bathhouse in Bristol. Portmeirion's reputation as a haven for tired artists was now due for a shock. It was discovered by film companies. It started in a quiet way when the film Inn of the Sixth Happiness was shot locally. The star, Miss Ingrid Bergman, came to the hotel to relax. The word got out, and soon film companies were asking to use the village as a set. Most hoteliers would have despaired, but not our hero. Sir Clough reasoned that with a little guidance they could become welcome guests and useful new contributors to his building fund. He was right. Only one crew ever let him down, and as time passed, many a film prop found its last resting place within the walls of Portmeirion. This Buddha came from the set of the Inn of the Sixth Happiness, along with some less obvious artifacts. One famous international film director once shocked the nonconformist locals by importing bunny girls from London. But he'd taken over the whole hotel, and Portmeirion is all things to all men. The production that had the biggest impact on the village was The Prisoner. The actor-producer, Patrick McGowan, discovered Portmeirion whilst working on another film. And when the script for The Prisoner was given to him, he immediately decided to set the major part of the action here. The program was shot in 1967 and consisted of just 17 episodes. It became a worldwide success and later a cult series with regular repeats.
We know what we must do. What must we do?
Progress! Progress! Progress!
Exactly. We are, however, fortunate in having with us a recent recruit whose outlook is particularly militant and individualistic. That bra was a bit weedy. Again.
Cult members come from all corners of the globe for annual meetings, or just to see and breathe the air of their icon. The Prisoner's house here on Battery Square is exclusively for them. Occasionally, on his birthday, Sir Clough's friends gave him little gifts to enhance the garden. But finally, he declared the dream virtually complete. He died in 1978 at the age of 95, in the knowledge of a job well done. His pronouncement was perhaps a little premature. In 1981, a fire destroyed the main hotel, and it was 10 years before it was rebuilt and restored to its former eminence. And there were, of course, the gardens, woods, and walkways. The walks through the gardens and woods have now become almost as popular as the village, with people who require exercise or solitude, or just to breathe the sweet and fragrant mixture of azaleas, bluebells, primrose, wild garlic, or any other of the multitude of native and exotic plants, trees and shrubs that go to make up at Gwyllt, the wild park. Throughout his life, one of Sir Clough's major worries was the intrusion of the suburban spread on the dignity of Portmeirion. He was apt to call it the bungalow virus, and he took great care to keep it at bay. One by one, he bought the adjacent woods and farmlands, and so created his own greenbelt. He then appointed a board of trustees, mainly from his family, to guarantee continuity of care and protection for his creation. On the death of Sir Christopher Wren, his friends erected a plaque inside St. Paul's Cathedral that said simply, "If you would have a monument, look about you." Surely this must also apply to Sir Clough Williams-Ellis. He started with a dream that became, according to his critics, a folly. But a folly has no use. Surely a better word would be an enchantment.